looks like we've got a full house today with Lee and Greg sitting in for our now departed members, Glenn and Martha. So I will call this January 10th meeting of Budget, Capital, and Personnel to order. Do we have any changes to the agenda? I do not think so. Okay, so let's get our minutes approved, and then we will move on to the rest of our agenda. Would anybody like to move the minutes of December 13th? Mike and Rich seconds. Any comments or questions? If not, we will proceed to the vote. Rich John.
Yes.
Greg Neasy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. So now we're in kind of an interesting procedural position with the Tiger minutes on this agenda.
Yeah, it's just to clear them out of our system,
Okay,
sending it through a committee for approval.
all right, so,
I was on Tiger, I'll move it.
okay, and I will not Tiger and I'll second it. So, any questions or concerns about this? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. Rich John,
Yes.
Greg Nezzi,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Williams.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. We've already determined that we don't have any changes to the agenda. Do we have anyone from the public, Kathy?
No, don't.
Okay, so no public comment. And that brings us to Lisa Holmes, our county administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few brief updates, nothing too pressing. Just to make you all aware, we are, last week we tuned into the Governor's State of the State address, and there are a number of items that she included in that may have impacts on counties. So far, it looks good, but we won't know probably until I think the 18th or the 19th. She will be releasing the budget, which is tied to a lot of those initiatives that she brought forward. So, and we have a number of our department heads who will be receiving information, more details from their state associations on the initiatives that she talked about in the State of the State. So certainly more to come on that, and we will be watching for that as the state budget process unfolds. We are also in the process and working with HR to looking at the changes in the isolation and quarantine guidance that is come forth first from the CDC down through the state. And what was issued to the community last week also affects us as an employer and as our workforce. So we're trying to clarify the guidance and operationalize it for our own employees. It's not very straightforward. So just in terms of the isolation and quarantine and what is going to be coming down for the use of paid sick leave. So those are two items we're working on. We're also, I've mentioned previously, working with department heads to come up with their departmental overall goals for 2022, and in trying to, we'll be encouraging department heads to share those goals with the committees to whom they report, so that we can line them up with committee goals and just make sure we're all moving in the same direction and we have alignment there. And two other items that are not on the agenda but will be on the agenda for action at the February meeting. One has to do with, we had an over target request for the 2022 budget for the payout of vacation time for employees who accumulated over the maximum amount due to vacation front loading, and we carried it forward for a year to enable them time to spend it down. And then because of COVID over the last year or two, they have not been able to spend it down. It starts to increase in value the longer you hold on to it. And so we had an OTR requesting that for those affected employees that we would just pay out that vacation time over the maximum, and we were going to use ARPA funds for that. We've since learned that ARPA funds can't be used for that, so it looks like it's going to have to come out of fund balance. The good news about this is that it is a smaller amount than we originally thought, because people have spent down some of their vacation time in the meantime. So it's not before you right now because we are calculating the actual amounts at the end of the year. Some people used it over the holidays. So that will be coming to you next month, but I kind of wanted to give you a heads up on that. So because we can't use ARPA funds for it, those funds can be used for another purpose out of the ARPA funding, but it will come out of fund balance. And the other item is we will also be bringing forth the contract renewal for the consulting for financial and administrative services that we're using for Kevin McGuire, Jason Molino. It seems like you've seen this multiple times, but we were instructed that we had to do one for 2021, and because it crossed over years, we'll have to do a separate resolution to take it out of 2022. So that'll be coming forward to you next month as well. So I think those are all of my updates, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if people had them.
Thanks, Lisa. Does anybody have questions for Lisa? Okay, guess not. It's interesting that you mentioned that you can't use the ARPA funds after all. I saw something that the Treasury has finally issued its final rule.
Yes.
And it's only 437 pages long.
Yeah, have you gotten through it yet, Deborah?
No, I'm saving it for an insomniac night.
Me too.
But I mean, this is why we chose to proceed as we proceeded and use 100% of those ARPA funds for internal government operations. So that nobody has to plow through those 437 pages. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, moving on. Rick Snyder, we would love to hear from you.
You would.
Yes, we would.
Thank you. I wanted to update you on the audits, as I told the legislators last time we met. I think it was at the GO meeting last week, that we were well underway with the IDA audit and with the Tompkins task audit. We do have a mini audit going on this week, which is our interim county audit. And you might ask, why is the interim being now done at the end of the year? Well, our final audit of the county does not transpire until May. They're here almost the whole month of May doing the final audit. And 3 or 4 months before that, we always schedule an interim or controls audit, which they come in and do some testing of our controls, and they begin some of the preliminary audit work. So those auditors for the county audit are here all this week. So we're up to our ears with audits and auditors right now. And I'm just kind of glad we got through 2021. And again, we have a lot of year-end journal entries and recordings to do before we're ready to close the year. But I thought I'd give you that update, that we're well into 3 of the 5 audits that we are doing. And that's pretty much for me today.
Thanks, Rick. Does anybody have questions for Rick? If not, I do. So this interim audit I know that figuring out what our fund balance is has been a topic of great interest to many of our members. Will this interim audit get us closer?
No way, shape, or form. The early you'll hear anything on fund balance will be near the end of March. We have check runs up until mid-February. We have a lot of revenue receipting to do between now and mid-February. I'd say if I ran a report right now, it would be give or take $4 million one way or the other. That's how much our net balance could change between now and the actual closing of the year. So it's far too early. Although I can tell you that our use of budgeted fund balance will be less than we projected. That's pretty normal. Our sales tax, well, as you know, will be well in excess of the amount budgeted. Our room tax is going to be well in excess of the amount we budgeted. And our proceeds from the casino revenue will be far more than we expected. So I know that it'll be a pretty good and favorable report when we finally give you the effect on our fund balance for the year, but we are quite a few months away from giving you even an estimate on that.
So patience is warranted.
Sorry to say, yes.
That's good practice. That's all right. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Committee reports from Workforce Diversity and Inclusion. I got an email from Henry earlier today. He said he had nothing to report, which is probably why he's not here. So we can then move on to our report from Human Resources Commissioner Ruby Pulliam. Hi, Ruby.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
You too.
Okay, I'm going to be short and quick today. Lisa had already mentioned that we are busy working with County Admin, Health Department on the COVID cases and the follow-up for that, getting instructions and guidance out to our employees, and dealing with the number of positive cases that we're dealing with on a daily rate. Today at 1 p.m. was the deadline for the RFP for the compensation study. I'm waiting to hear from purchasing to see how many proposals we received. And I will get back with you with that as soon as I get that information. We've just been busy trying to get the rates, 2022 rates in for January's first paycheck. We're gonna, fingers crossed, that everything goes well with this new payroll system and getting the retros for the agreements that were approved in December. So we're running.
Okay. Sounds like an easy day for you, Ruby.
It's been a wonderful day.
Oh,
I'm
that's
a little
good to hear.
delirious at the moment, but it's been a wonderful day.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Ruby? Mike?
Ruby, any update on the administrator search?
No, that we ended that. I am waiting for the direction from the legislature to what we want to do with that. We ended in December. Well, actually it was before December. We ended that search and we're just waiting for the legislature's directions on how we want to go with that.
I was thinking we were re-advertising.
Yes, but the start date, when we're re-advertising, if we're going to review the job description and see if we wanted to do anything differently. One of the comments from the last time was if we're not going to change anything, we may not get that big a difference of a result.
So we should be putting this on our agenda for our next VCP meeting. And in response, Mike, I think that since we were right up against the holiday season when we closed out the first county administrator search, we had determined that it didn't make a lot of sense to try to put it out there until after the year. Because
But are we saying that we won't even be giving her direction until a month from now?
Well, I want to hear what, I think we all want to hear what the concerns are about the job description and posting as it currently exists. And I think we would want to have the new committee members weigh in on that.
Well, I'm just thinking that that's a long time out before we can get the process started. Should we have a special meeting, for example, just to talk about that?
Well, I will certainly discuss that with Shauna, and once we get the committee populated, then we can consider what we want to do now. Okay?
Okay.
Rich, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was essentially going to ask about what you guys just discussed. It does seem like we should be moving on this with some speed. But how we go about that, I guess it would make sense that we had some organized manner to have the discussion. So perhaps a month. But I'd certainly be willing to attend a special meeting if that's what was desired.
Okay, thanks, Rich. I'll tell you what, I will talk to Shauna and I will get back to y'all. All right. Any other questions for Rudy? Rick?
Yeah, I had one. I hate to go back to my part of the program, but I asked Kathy a little bit earlier on what the committees would be next year. She told me it would be too early to tell until after like the 18th of the month. Maybe she'll get a report out to everybody by the end of this month. My auditors are asking, and I just thought maybe I'd ask this committee, do we have any idea if this budget committee may be meeting at the same time and day next year, or is that all up in the air right now? My auditors are asking because they're trying to schedule dates around this committee's meeting date in July, and we're very planned here. And any ideas on that you could share with me?
None. No, seriously, until we know who's on the committee and we are able to find out what their schedules permit in terms of the meeting time, there's just no way to predict. I mean, I would love to keep it right where it is, but
Yeah,
it just depends who the other 4 people on the committee are.
that's fine. I just thought I'd ask if we had the same committee chair, or if we, what we usually do at this time, we schedule the budget committee for reviewing the financial statements in that legislative meeting in July around the existing calendar that we have right now. And then when the changes are made, we just move it around and make adjustments later on. But I just thought I would hazard maybe a guess at this question early on while I had you all here together. But thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll try to let you know as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving forward to our one resolution. Lisa, is this one of yours? Where did this come from?
Yeah, it originated from county admin.
Okay, great. So that is resolution, appropriation from contingent fund and contract with Human Services Coalition for continued 211 COVID-19 response, ID 10610. And I move that, if I could get a second. Rich, thank you. Lisa, do you want to speak to this, please?
Sure. So we, when the mask mandate came down from New York State and counties were asked to enforce the mask mandate, we set up the reporting portal on the health department webpage, and we instructed we reached out to 211 to see if the public could call and they could help with, continue to help with enforcement of the mask mandate, and also continue to help us in other ways around registration for vaccine and booster clinics, et cetera. We thought that we would be, we thought that need for 211 for these services would not be as much in 2022, but that's so far not the case. The other thing that has come to pass is that the governor has extended, I think, something like $65 million throughout the state, which boils down to up to $1 million for Tompkins County, for counties who have said that they will enforce the mask mandate. So we expect that this expense, we will be able to use that funding, the New York State funding, to offset this.
Well, that's good news.
Yes.
Okay, I see questions from Rich and then Lee.
I see it says there's an increase in 211 calls related to COVID-19, and I was wondering what kind of trends we're seeing, if, Lisa, you're able to speak to that.
I probably can't speak to the particulars, but I know that our community turns to 211 for information about the vaccine clinics and boosters, the availability of home test kits, and the availability of masks. We have, when the first shipment of KN95 masks came down from the state, we engaged our partners at the Human Services Coalition to help us get those distributed out to the community. So I would imagine it's all of those things.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Lee.
Kind of similar to Rich's question. I was wondering what kind of call volume they're seeing at 211. I imagine it's sporadic depending on what the issue of the day is. But have they fielded hundreds of calls or thousands of calls? Do they provide you some of that data, Lisa?
They could. We certainly could ask for it. We were getting it very regularly, I think, earlier on in the pandemic, and then things started to wane, and now they've picked up again. So they've been a very strong and consistent partner for us throughout the pandemic and getting information direct to the public through 211 and through nonprofits. So, but I would say it's more in the thousands of calls. And we do get that data regularly. I just don't have it at my fingertips.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else? Kathy?
Yes, the finance director, Rick Snyder, has asked that resolutions identify the fiscal year. So could I ask if the committee would agree to add for fiscal year 2022 in the last resolved?
That's friendly to the mover and friendly to Rich, so.
Thank you.
All right, ready to vote? Rich John,
Yes.
Greg Mizzi,
Yes.
Lee Sherburne,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, review of 2021 committee goals. This one's kind of tricky, guys. I sent you the document over the weekend that we agreed to last year, very optimistically, because we thought everything was going to be better and we were going to move beyond the crises of 2020. So we had the first goal was complete 2 direct report evaluations prior to the start of the budget process. We didn't do that. We completed the carryovers from 2020 and finished the evaluations for John Wood and Kathy. That we never did quite get to Jason and Rick, and then Jason left, so that became a moot point. And Rick, you just dodged a bullet. What can I tell you? Anyhow, so the committee is going to have to consider how we want to proceed with that in the coming year and years. One thing I will say, the benefit of Greg and Lee, In the past, we've done these direct report evaluations, alternating, 2 each year. And it tended to carry over into budget season, which meant it really didn't get done until the following year, which is why early this year, we ended up finishing the evaluations from 2020. So our goal should be to make sure that this direct report evaluation process gets started early every year so that we can finish it before we head into budget season. And that's really the important takeaway with respect to this particular issue. The second thing we had was review our rollover policy. Again, we never really got there. I know this is something that Jason had wanted to do. I had wanted to do it. Martha wanted to do it. I think Mike wanted to do it.
For years.
And Lisa would like to do it too. So this will definitely be something that's on our list for 2022. Let's see, Greg's got a hand up and Kathy's got a hand up.
No, I was.
Oh, okay. Greg, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, just a quick question with the direct report evaluation. Is there a procedure or policy or something that we can put in place so that mechanism is triggered or started at the beginning of the year, or that it doesn't that it can sort of become an automatic part of the process, or is it something that we actually each year have to trigger or start?
I think that the way it works is that we have to kind of trigger it every year. I don't know about whether or not we could pass a policy. I don't know if you'd want to have a policy in our book of many policies, which you'll soon find yourself acquainted with. But that's certainly something we can explore. I mean, usually we just need to get the process started by asking Ruby if she would please move it along. And Ruby had plenty to do last year, so we just didn't get there.
Got it.
And again, I don't know, Mike, did you have something to offer on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Greg, we normally started out with a 360 survey review sent out to various people that deal with the county administrator or the director of finance, let's say this year. We had some questions. Every time they come back, we kind of wonder about something in a particular one, why we didn't get more responses from this group or that group and that kind of thing. So I think we're going to kind of look at the surveys, as I recall,
And
before they went out this year.
and we had
That's
started that with Ruby.
That's how it started. And once we get those back, then we usually set up the meetings to start review them with the and they're not secret, they're shared with the people being evaluated, and then we talk with them and move forward.
Okay. Yes,
Deborah,
ma'am.
if you like, I could start, we finished up last year with a sort of a template with the questions that we were going to ask.
Right.
I could start by resending that to see where we want to pick up from that process.
That's a good idea, Ruby.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, third one we had was that we were going to take a good hard look at facilities usage. And that was driven by a couple of considerations. Primarily, what difference long-term, if any, COVID has made on how many employees will be working on site and how many will be working remotely. And then we wanted to get a better sense of how much workspace we needed because we have this long-term plan for a new facility. Now, I don't know, honestly, and I'd be happy to hear what everybody thinks, whether this is a priority that should be worked on in this committee or in F&I, which will likely inherit the downtown facilities piece of last year's agenda. if anybody has any thoughts they want to share at this point on that particular topic, please share them. If not, we can take it up in the future. Mike?
I just think that we've had space studies before, and I think we need to dust those out and update them for this kind of issue, and add the remote work component to it.
Was that something that was done by a contractor, Mike, or was that done internally?
They were done internally. It's been what, 10 years? Probably. Since we had
Probably
them.
out of date, eh?
Although I think they were updated when Joe Mariana did the look at the old library site for the center of government.
Okay, so that was a while ago. Okay,
About 6 years ago.
good to know. Okay, I got Rich and then Lee.
I would say F&I is appropriate for this.
Okay, that was my thought as well. Thanks, Rich. Lee?
This might be a question more in Lisa's direction. Has this been a topic among the department heads, kind of reevaluating the positions and where people can more easily work and should be working? Certainly you've got a year and a half or 2 years worth of perspective now that may have changed.
Sure. So while I would say department heads and staff have implemented more work from home practices, we do have a work from home policy, and we certainly had to implement something when we had to reduce down to 50% and so forth. We don't have staff that are fully remote. So we have staff who are working from home a couple of days a week, or in this interim time, if they're under order of quarantine, or if they're under order of isolation and but they're not symptomatic, or they're well enough to work and they can work from home, they have. So that's been our experience. And of course, in 2020, we had reductions in force, just sheer numbers of our workforce due to budget, due to COVID. And we've had, some restoration of those positions. So, I mean, it's worth looking at, but at this point, I don't think that we don't have fully remote staff working.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if if it would cause departments now to rethink truly their space needs in the long term, if now that they know what some of the other viable options may be or could be.
Yeah, it's a question worth asking.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, the next one was review demographics of county workforce overall. And develop baseline and goals to start measuring process. I think, Ruby, that your latest report, I can't remember if it was at BCP or at a ledge meeting, pretty much covered all of this. You're muted. Okay.
I'm sorry, Deborah, I missed half of that part. Which report were you referring to?
Review demographics of county workforce overall. We did do that. You did that.
Yes, we did that on the last legislative meeting, but we didn't have all the census data to go with the population for the work group, so we couldn't make the comparisons. So Joan from planning is monitoring that, and will send me that information as soon as we have it. We have workforce numbers, but we can't make any comparison to the region or the area at this point.
Okay, so we're just waiting on the census data.
Correct.
And you'll let us know when that comes out.
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of a partial win, eh? Rich, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just had a question. Was there something this committee was going to do with that demographic information?
I don't know, because this was one of Martha's pet projects.
Okay.
It was primarily for the WDIC committee, and we were going to share that information. And Martha wanted to compare to see if any of our diversity efforts had made an impact. And she was also concerned about the retention of our minority employees.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And I will say that I don't know if anybody else has read any of that lengthy book that came with the governor's State of the State address. But she has some aspirations in that report about creating opportunities for the state to have a more diverse workforce and to make the civil service exam system easier to navigate and more accessible to a wider and more diverse population. So hopefully we'll get some help in that direction too, because I do know that the civil service procedures have been a real problem in terms of recruiting a more diverse workforce. And
Thank you. Yeah, this is data that WDIC has been wanting for at least 4 years. And so I, as far as I can see it, it falls under what we've been working on. So if you can let us take the first stab at this and work with BCP on when the data comes out and any recommendations.
that would be fine, Andy. I'm sure that Ruby would be happy to send that to you and Henry and anyone else that she does with it.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next one was systematized results-based accountability and budget process. And I know that we didn't even touch this thing. Rich, this was, I think, your baby. So if there's anything you want to talk about with this, why?
Yeah, I'd like to see this continue as a goal. You know,
Okay.
we're putting a lot of effort into building RBA throughout the county organization and all the departments. And I think there's useful information coming out of it. Certainly in the budget process, we spend a lot of time looking at new spending, but we don't have a similar focus on the vast bulk of the spending once it gets into our target budget on whether it's working or not. And RBA would be a way of at least doing some analysis of that. And that's why I think this is a worthy committee goal.
Okay. Well, and just a heads up to everybody, especially Greg and Lee, we will, as a committee, be working on our goals, putting together our goals for 2022 in the next couple of months. So if you are on BCP going forward, you will see some of this again. Okay. Review how BCP learns about disciplinary matters. Mike, this was one of your issues, and it was in response to a specific set of events, I believe. Do you want to address this?
Well, I'm glad to say that normally in the past, when there's an issue with a particular employee, let's say, it would be brought to executive session to the BCP committee for initial discussion. So that we can better understand what's going on and support administration or department heads or question if there are questions that need to be asked. Before it moves on to the full legislature in executive session. Once something is brought to the full legislature in executive session having to do with a personnel matter, a particular person, the entire legislature is restricted from commenting. And that was a real issue with a particular situation a couple of times. And it was different than what we'd ever done before. So the idea here as a goal was to say, and I think we talked about it at some point,
Right.
was to simply request that if there's an issue, that it be brought first to the budget committee in executive session.
And I think that although we haven't had a lot of specific discussion about this, I think that our preference for BCP being the first responder, so to speak, has been conveyed to both Lisa and Ruby. And I assume that in the future, that will be how things work. Is that right, ladies?
Sure, that's how I understand it.
Okay, great. Okay, review living wage of contractors that contract with the county. I do not think we ever got to that. And we can consider whether we want to carry that over into next year. Mike?
But doesn't our contract administration check on that all the time?
I can speak to that, yes. And we probably know because it's part of our contracts that that contractors are living wage employers, and if not, then state why, and there are only a few exceptions. And I think I know who they are, having been at the Office for the Aging. A lot of it had to do with home care workers. There are very few other exceptions. I think there's just a handful of them.
So this was really just for our own information about something that's already being taken care of routinely by staff, right?
Yes, I would say so.
I think that's right.
Okay, so I don't know that we need to carry that over into the next year. And the final one was discuss and recommend a compensation study, whether it's necessary for the county workforce. And Ruby's already got that one rolling along. So I think that's it for last year's goals. Mike?
I was thinking we had a goal about retention, or was that rolled into the compensation study?
I think it might have been rolled into the compensation study. This is the document that we were working off of. So, you know, I do want to say, for the benefit of those of you who've been with us for all of 2021 and for the new people, I just wanted to go over some of the things that took up our time, that were unexpected, that distracted us from our goals. We had ongoing budget and staffing issues relating to the health department's COVID response. We had to deal with the ARPA funds and the Community Recovery Fund. We had to kind of reorganize the budget aspect of county administration to replace Kevin and bring Samantha and Daniel on board. We had to adjust admin salaries to reflect the increase that we passed for the new county administrator's salary. We had to promote Lisa. We had one failed county administrator search. We had to promote Bill Troy to replace John Wood and restructure legal to make the deputy county attorney position a full-time position, which was good succession planning. We had to approve a capital fund plan for TC3, or at least the beginnings of the capital fund plan for TC3. We had to approve funding for TC3's new workforce training pilot program. We had to pass a budget and a capital plan without Jason and Kevin, which was no small task. And we set new next term salaries for our clerk and our sheriff. So it wasn't all eating bonbons, folks, despite the fact that we didn't get to a lot of our stated goals. And I think the final part of this discussion is we have to think about our goals for 2022 more as aspirations than as, a set of must-dos that we check off at the end of the year or else we fail. Shauna and I had a really interesting discussion with one of our department heads last week who said that she was somewhat concerned about the goals that the committees are setting, not interfering or conflicting with the department's work plans. So as we set our goals for next year, I think, or this year, now it's this year, as we set these goals for 2022, I really want us to take input from Lisa and Ruby and Rick about what their department work plan is and how it works in tandem with our committee goals. Because I don't want to be pulling any department head or staff away from departmental goals to meet our goals. So all I guess I want to say is that I hope this will be a collaborative legislature staff process, more so perhaps than it's been in past years. And if anybody has thoughts about that, I'd love to hear them. Lee.
Question, what's our process to see that our committee goals align with the department goals? Are they sharing them in some manner so that we can see what direction they're headed in and how they may relate to
let Lisa answer that because she alluded to that in her comments.
Sure, yeah, so in our last department head meeting in December, we were talking about overall goals for 2021, to take a look back and review how close departments came to meeting their goals, and to start thinking about and setting departmental goals for 2022. We have a department head meeting this week where I was planning to talk about that further and instruct department heads to finalize their departmental goals for 2022 and share them with county admin, and also share them with their the program committees to which they report for February, so that the legislators are fully aware of the departmental goals and they can reference them as they are creating their committee goals. And so that really the goal of the whole exercise is for all parties to be aware of, for the legislators to be aware of what is on departments' plates, what directions they're going in, so that we are not working at cross purposes to one another, and so that they're in alignment with what the legislature sees as policies and priorities moving forward, and that they can all can work in alignment with each other.
I guess the only caveat I would put before this group is that if there's something that's exceedingly important to the legislature, or a policy that they really want to pursue, or a direction they really want to go in, and it's not in a departmental work plan, there has to be some give and take, because we are the body that sets the policy. And I assume you're not saying, Lisa, that a department's just going to say, no, you can't do that. That's not what this is about. It's just the idea that if we work collaboratively, we will have department work plans and committee goals that are congruent.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I think that's certainly things are subject to change. Opportunities come up for funding throughout the year that departments may want to jump on. the legislature may, it's there, an acknowledgement that yes, everything is subject to change. 2 years ago, COVID was on no one's work plan, and we all had to change and adapt. So for certain, but I think too, it provides us all with some guideposts and guardrails moving forward to help,
Keep us on track.
keep us on track.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? Okay, so goal setting starts next month, people. And other than that, let's see, we have some information on budget adjustments and transfers that is attached to your packet. Is there anything else anybody wants to discuss? Rich?
Yeah, we have an upcoming meeting to talk about the recovery fund. I was just curious about how you were thinking about structuring that meeting, the discussion. Do we have
Well, I think,
proposals we're going to react to, or is it sort of open?
well, Lisa and Shauna and I have talked about this. I hate to leave it completely open-ended because that got us absolutely nowhere last time around. So I think that maybe we could put together a document that has all the questions that your working group came up with, and then has like multiple choice, 2 or 3 options in response to each one. That might be a way to keep our discussion more or less focused. Does that make sense?
I think that would be a good idea. Yeah, I think having something to sort of guide the discussion would be really, really useful, because we've gone off the rails so efficiently at our last few attempts.
Well, we have to be good at something, right?
That's right.
It's hard to have an open-ended discussion with 14 people and end up with, concrete answers. That just doesn't work. So, yeah.
I would be happy to volunteer to help with that, trying to put together that paper or whatever, if you wish.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Okay, anything else? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Greg, Rich seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Bye.
All right, take care.